One of the very cool things about growing up in the 20th century, at the turn of the 20th century, is that we've gotten to witness exploration of the final frontier. I'm talking about outer space. Maybe you're like me when you were younger, and you really wanted to be an astronaut when you were a kid, and maybe those dreams crashed and burned like mine when you realized you needed an advanced physics degree to do that. So, what I found through researching the National Aeronautics and Space Administration is that you don't have to have a degree like that to still make a contribution to the company. There are a lot of cool jobs that are still out there working through NASA. So today I'm going to tell you a bit about the history of NASA, what jobs that we don't necessarily see going on at NASA, and then we'll talk about what NASA is going to do in the future. Now, NASA is not really a company that needs an introduction. They started in 1958, put a man on the moon in 1969. In 1977, they sent Voyager 1 into space, and 35 years later, it's still transmitting data back to us from 11 billion miles away. That's a pretty impressive track record. So who is putting all this together and making these accomplishments? Well, it is true, according to NASA's website, about 60% of the workforce is an engineer or a physicist, but I'm going to focus on the other 40% today. One job is related to my field of study, psychology. Psychologists actually help with the astronaut selection because we don't want to put hot-tempered people in a little crammed space shuttle. If you've seen the movie Armageddon, you've seen Bruce Willis fight in space, and that's not what NASA wants to happen at all. So they actually also train the astronauts how to live in these tight spaces. You don't actually need a college degree to work for NASA, though. They also take certified divers, and they train the astronauts underwater to simulate microgravity, which is pretty cool. Some of you are going into public relations, and that's really important to NASA. Science is really complex, so a lot of what a public relations specialist would do for NASA is educate the public on what exactly NASA is doing with their tax dollars. So if the public did not know what they're doing, the tax dollars would probably go elsewhere. And it is true that even though those scientific breakthroughs that I mentioned earlier, that the budget has been decreasing from NASA since 1966. The U.S. Office of Management and Budget puts NASA's budget for 2012 at just under $18 billion, which seems like a lot, but actually it's one of the lowest for the administrations, and it's only 0.5% of the entire national budget. So NASA has $18 billion this year to spend on space. What are they going to do with it for the future? Well, we can divide it into three things. First, it's deep space exploration. By 2018, NASA would like to put a new telescope into space that would be capable of studying some of the universe's oldest stars. Second is looking into expanding the International Space Station to keep it running and to test new equipment that would be used for long-duration space flight, which goes along with the third thing NASA wants to do, is put a man on Mars by the 2030s. In conclusion, I've talked a little bit about the history of NASA, some of the jobs that you might not have expected to be at NASA, and how those jobs are taking small steps for man to take giant leaps for mankind in the future. Thank you very much.